Stop, trains can't. Doug Gottlieb, I'm definitely concerned about his commute to his afternoon radio show, so I'll make this quick for 8 minutes. Okay, let's start with this in college hoops. One of the great things about life, and this matters to you, anybody listening this connects with, I think, is that if you're just willing to learn, and you're not rigid, and you're not arrogant, and you're willing to be curious, that you could be a 40-year-old doctor and be better at 50. And be better. Now, at some point at 70, you lose your faculties and your prostate falls out of your pants and you're just old. But Jay Wright was a good coach. And about 5 years ago, and I'm guessing here, but something clicked. He was always a good coach. Doug, they're the best passing team in the country.
Yes, they are.
Everybody can shoot. He is so poised on the sideline. They have stretches where he lets his team play through struggles. And I watch him and I'm like, is it possible? We always give these guys like good coach, bad coach. To me, Jay Wright feels like in Villanova, they have popped in the last 5 years.
Well, look, there's a couple of, it's like, the perfect storm analogy, right? There's a couple of things that allowed it to become a perfect storm.
Okay, what?
All right, so the first thing is they bottomed out as a program after they went to a Final Four. Remember, they went to the Final Four with four guards, with Alan Ray, with Mike Nardi and those guys, right? They had a couple pros with what's the name from the Toronto Raptors?
Lowry.
Kyle Lowry, right? So they go to a Final Four. That allows them to start recruiting the top 25 kids in the country. They're the number one recruiting class in the country after the Final Four. But those weren't Villanova guys. Those were all guys worried about going to the NBA. And so they won, I think, 13 games. This is going back 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
They go to the new Big East, which, let's just be honest, it's dropping down a level in terms of the overall competition. Sure. They were in a league before with Syracuse, UConn at its peak, Louisville, Notre Dame, etc. Now they get
Xavier
to play, well, it wasn't. Xavier was moving up a level. Creighton was moving up a level. Butler was moving up almost 2 levels. They were a Horizon level team, but they also had Providence, who now they've been to 5 straight tournaments, but at the time, they were down at the bottom. DePaul and St. John's kind of bottomed out. So it helped them that they took on some inferior competition. But the biggest thing was, I told you my brother worked under Mike Montgomery, and his thing was simplicity and execution. Right? That was his saying, simplicity and execution. And that's what Jay Wright has become. They only run 5 things on offense. But if you go to their practice, it's like a work of art. They throw almost all bounce passes in practice. They are incredibly efficient as a passing team. They work on pivoting. They work on shooting. They work on throw it into the post. There's a double team. We work on the same things every day. And there's nothing all that special about any one player. Now, they do have probably more pros on this team than they had in the national championship team 2 years ago. You probably have 3 or maybe even 4 NBA players, but it's the spacing is 21st century spacing. Amari Spellman, their 5-man, hit 4 threes against West Virginia. That's why they won.
Listen, if I was a young player, I'd want to play for Villanova.
No question, but he's also done a good job of recruiting his type of players, guys that are in it for us, guys that are tough-minded mentally. They play great defense with their legs, not with their hands. And I would agree with you. When he was first, I played against him when he was at Hofstra. He had Speedy Claxton, he had 2 pros on his team, and we stomped him. And we didn't think they were great. We thought they played hard. When they went to the Final Four the first time, they had 4 guards, and they just kind of ran a take-em offense, and they were one of the first teams in the Big East to play 4 guards, and they really excelled at that. I think it was the combination of adjusting in terms of competition, which allowed them to regain their kind of their pride, and they've dominated the new Big East, along with adjusting your recruitment to sometimes you say no to guys. Sometimes you say no to guys because you get the better player for your program, the 4-year player, the Dante DiVincenzo who redshirts a year.
Yeah.
And then I think he's also simplified his coaching style. You don't run a million plays. You run 5 things. You run them really well. You get better at passing, shooting, dribbling, ball handling. You play defense as a team, and you go to a second Final Four in 3 years.
Let me guess. You're going to defend Calipari, who's got Knox, who's got NBA players, and they can't win a 3rd, 4th game in the tournament. It's funny. Loyola's winning. Brad Stevens won. Yeah, 2 guys that get a little pass from the media. Izzo. Come on, let's win more games. Too many bigs, not enough guards. I wouldn't want to play for Michigan State if I was a young player. I'm not interested in that style. By the way, Boeheim gets a little pass. I don't think I'd want to play in that style. And Calipari, what is their offense? He's been there 9 years. What do they run?
I actually think if you watch the game, they were running NBA caliber stuff. They actually executed very well. Their problem is they don't have that good of players. Like, basketball has become, in the college level and the pro level, more about skill and execution and fundamentals than it is about length and athleticism and upside. You look at Florida State, who, got beat by Michigan. Okay, Florida State's got dudes for days, but can you pass, dribble, and shoot? And that's what Kentucky was sorely missing, is in their evaluation of players, they didn't evaluate properly. Can you actually make shots? Because that opens up the floor. I mean, look, the reason that Duke got beat yesterday is Trayvon Duval, who's a talented freshman, can't shoot, so you don't have to guard him. So Marvin Bagley constantly has two guys on him.
Right.
So it's about spacing, it's about shooting, it's about skill, and frankly, that's why all four teams are still playing in the Final Four.
Yeah. All right. By the way, this whole thing about, I thought Duke Kansas was great. It's funny, Bill Self will lose with talented teams. This team's grittier. They work hard. They get in. I thought Duke Kansas was as good as it gets. Overall, the tournament is what it is. College basketball is a little bit of an airport now. You land and you can't wait to get to the next flight and get out of there. I think it hurts the sport. Overall, Loyola Chicago, is that good for the sport?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, because it gives hope to the formerly hopeless. And this is what's crazy about it, is this was a year to which we all came in, even those of us who covered it for 15 years and played in it.
Yeah.
To think this year where, God, you could see 20 teams, 25 teams getting there. Usually we have 3 thoroughbreds and 1, how the hell they get here.
Yeah.
Right? Go back and look historically the last 25 years. And that's what we have this year. We had the Big Ten tournament champion. We have the Big East. I mean, truthfully,
number 1 seed.
Yes. Had they not had injuries, they would have won the Big East. They won the Big East tournament, and Kansas won the Big 12. The Big 12
And by the way,
tournament.
Duke was good enough. I mean, Grayson Allen shot goes in, they're in.
No question. I do think that, like, Bill Self's in the Hall of Fame. To anybody who says he doesn't get the respect, he's like, dude, you're in the Hall of Fame. You can't get any more respect than that in the coaching world.
We think he's a good coach.
I think he's an outstanding coach. And I thought they won the game not just because they were fortunate that last shot didn't go in.
Right.
But they won that game because of a couple of different things, but maybe the biggest is they scored more out of bounds plays than anybody in the tournament.
Yeah.
That's called ATOs, after a timeout.
That's good coaching.
It's great coaching.
Brad Stevens does that too.
Correct. And if you can steal a bucket on a dead ball, you never know when it helps you. It helped him in the Elite Eight.
By the way, my high school coach was a big Bobby Knight fan, and he used to always say, Indiana gets 6 points a game off Bobby's inbounds plays. And that's like a thing. In college basketball now, the roof's been lowered, the floor is still the floor, but in the end, it's amazing how many of these games are won by 4. And those are out of bounds plays.
Well, yeah, and you also have, remember, how much does coaching matter, right? We just talked about Jay Wright, who's dominated the Big East.
Yeah.
This is the first year they didn't win the Big East, but they would have won the Big East and won the Big East tournament. John Beeline, who runs a squeaky clean program, but is a professor as a coach. And those are 2 future Hall of Famers. They're not in yet, but they will eventually be. And Bill Self is a Hall of Famer. And Porter Moser, here's what's amazing about it. Porter Moser,
20 seconds.
13 previous years as a head coach in college basketball.
Yeah.
He never finished above 5th in a conference. This year he wins their conference tournament, and he's in the Final Four. That's crazy how sometimes just the magic of March ends up propelling you.
Yeah, you get the right class. They've worked together. It's joyful. They get a break in the tournament. Won 3 games by 4 points. Doug Gottlieb, he's got a big drive. Let's get him out of here. It's the Hurt.